Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the board workshop being held on December 15th, 2020. We have a quorum with all members present. We will review the agenda items from the regular meeting being held on December 17th, 2020. Dr. Randall, turn it over to you.
Yes, Madam President. You have an updated agenda item, so we'll go from 8 to 10, and then that will correlate with the agenda items in the book. We ask that the Board of Trustees approve the MOU between Boys and Girls Club of Greater Houston and Lamar Consolidated Independent School District for the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant application, and if funding is awarded, the after-school program for students at Navarro Middle School and Jackson Elementary.
Questions, comments? Anybody else?
Hello. As it's first stated, that this is on the contingency that they get the funding
Yes.
for this program?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When I was reading it, and it was referring to the middle school, junior high campuses, and then it says, thus George Junior High is named in the MOU, but the focus of the after-school program would be Navarro Middle School and Jackson Elementary. My question is, why would they be going to George Junior High on the MOU, but not considering them?
Yes, ma'am. So when the grant application is submitted to TEA, some of the data that they report is done through the accountability or the PEAMS system. And if you remember, in Lamar CISD, we have submit our PEAMS data and accountability data with our 6 through 8. So we combine the middle school and junior highs into one data set. So because of that, the Boys and Girls Club had to submit the data the way that it's reported to the state, which includes it's over George Junior High. We focused on Navarro 6th grade because Navarro, for an after-school program, 6th grade don't have extracurricular activities, and so we were really focused on allowing students in 6th grade to have those after-school activities scheduled.
Okay, well, how did Jackson fit in?
Jackson, we're looking at all of our schools that met the at-risk criteria that is mandated by the 21st Century Grant. And so Jackson Elementary and then Navarro with underneath George Junior High were the only ones that met that criteria and did not have an after-school program agreement already in place.
Okay, so are they trying to establish an after-school program at Navarro Middle School?
Yes, ma'am.
And incorporate Jackson Elementary because it's considered at risk?
It'd be at Jackson Elementary also and Navarro Middle School.
Okay, just stay with me for a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
I did a little bit of research, and according to that the grant, it refers to the higher test scores as far as one of their goals in reading, English, language arts, and math in grades 9 through 12. And then it says fewer disciplinary incidents while in grades 6 through 12. Now 6th grade would be the middle, Navarro. Fewer school day absences while in grades 4th through 12. Of those, where does Jackson come in?
So, ma'am, what you're referencing, I believe, is on the TEA website that shows the results of the 21st Century Grant. And so they reported out the positives of the 21st Century Grant, which included, as you mentioned, the test scores in grades 9 through 12. What we're wanting to do is set up these after-school activities for both Jackson and Navarro in an attempt to do some academic supports for those students, and also some other activities such as crafts, arts, and athletics. And so that data that you're referring to, or the report that you're referring to, is how they have looked at the 21st Century Grant throughout Texas, and those are the positives that have come out of it. They may not have found support for increase in tests in other grade levels, but we feel that we want to have that academic enrichment in place for Jackson as well, because we know we have students that are labeled as at risk at Jackson Elementary.
Okay. I guess because I know about the after-school programs in the elementary schools, Jackson has been a difficult school to get attendance over the years. At some point in time, would it be the responsibility of us as a school board to find out why it is considered one of the lowest at-risk schools and what we could be doing about it, other than inviting another group to come in and do that part?
So ma'am, to clarify, at risk is a identification that our students are labeled with, and there's 13 different reasons for being considered at risk. And so that's the information that we're working off of, that we report to the state annually. And that's why Jackson met that criteria. Now, success on assessments is another thing we look at, but it's the 13 criteria that has students labeled as at risk. And so that's our campus that met that threshold.
I think the Boys and Girls Club have been doing some after-school types of things for Pink Elementary School.
Mm-hmm.
They just are closer to their facility there. And what they're doing now is doing outreach, because through the grant, it won't cost the kids or families any money for participation in it. And this is the Boys and Girls Club's attempt to try to, again, reach out in an area where we need it.
Okay. I'm going to jump to another issue on this, is that in the agreement, they're asking for a designated area for their administrative operations. They're asking for us to supply them access to classrooms and to district personnel. And they're asking for use of the janitorial services with no pay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking us to provide them with buses and drivers during that time. When we start a lot of these programs initially as pilot programs, very few of them seem to become successful. We keep them for a year, the funding runs out, and then it's gone. And my concern is that if we do this again and it only lasts for the year or till the funding runs out, it doesn't serve a purpose for all of the students. Why would we be giving them or offering them all of these requests when basically the after-school programs we have at all the schools except for the Jackson one, we're not allowed, or the program is not allowed to have access to all of this? Is it just because it's a federal funded?
No, it's primarily because it's a partnership with the school district. You talked about the bus transportation. We already do that with the Boys and Girls Club that's over in Richmond. Because they were having difficulties attracting some of the junior high school kids, we started providing transportation for them. That was a part of the district trying to get the kids to that location so that they can indeed serve them. Once they got there, they helped them with homework and all of those types of things in support. So it's really, some of the things as far as staff working together, that's not new. We've been doing that. This is just they're asking through the grant to provide all of these additional support areas at 2 different schools, 2 other schools. Really, all, I guess almost all across, on the other side of town, so to speak.
Well, I wasn't aware that they were actually busing students from other schools in the program. And the elementary schools where the after-school programs were set up by the community businesses, the centers that were actually in the community were helping out the after-school program. And I feel like using Jackson being treated differently in that they will have access to a lot more of the school district's personnel. They'll have access more to a lot more information to help these students. And if all the elementary school programs, after-school programs, had that access, that would be more equal because it would help a lot more students. So the way I'm looking at it is we're focusing in on one elementary school. The Boys Club and Girls Club, I know, do a great job, but more at the junior high, the middle school and the junior high level. So if they're coming over to an elementary school, would that then question, should that be accessible to all of the communities that are working in this program?
They have been working with Pink Elementary for quite some years now. And you know, they're a non-for-profit organization that is just providing support to kids that they've identified in our area that are low socioeconomic. That is the best way that I can explain it to the board.
Can I ask a question? Well, Boys and Girls Club of Richmond is located literally across the street from Pink Elementary.
That's correct.
So are we talking about programs that the final bell of the day rings to dismiss and the kids go from their classrooms to another part of the same building?
Yes, sir.
Where the Boys and Girls Club is, and the buses would be to transport those students home as they normally would have been,
Yes, sir.
but just later in the day?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
That is correct.
Is this same kind of MOU available to the YMCA and other nonprofits that might want to work with the district?
There is. This one happened because of the 21st Century Grant that Boys and Girls Club were working through. The YMCA currently has 21st Century, other outreach for the 21st Century Grant, but we're looking at possibilities with the YMCA.
So any nonprofit that would target the same kind of academic achievement?
It could happen,
get
yes.
students involved after school?
Yes.
Could potentially have an MOU with us?
Yes, sir.
Catherine, Ms. Kaminsky, can I check? So I think to your point, when you're saying why do the other ones not, because they're the only schools that met the threshold for the at-risk. So I think for that point, why we don't offer it to the other elementaries is because they didn't meet the threshold for the grant.
Well, we don't know, see, this was not, until I looked into this, known that this was eligible for anyone. But the after-school programs all struggle with getting cooperation with the schools as far as if we have a student that maybe has an art function, that the confidentiality is there that that the programs do not have access to. Versus this group will have access to, and setting up the essentials of having 3 different staffing, setting up tutorial services. That's something that all these after-school programs would like to be able to do.
So you're saying, okay, I see what you're saying. So the access to the same information that they would have.
Right.
Okay.
It is that when I was looking at this, it was like, why the one elementary school? And if it's because Jackson is considered the highest at risk, should we maybe have taken on the responsibility of what more could we do during the school day with these students? Because basically the afternoon, you're talking maybe an hour, hour and a half of working with those students.
Yeah.
And you're having to report every quarterly, my understanding is, and you're to have tutorials available and certified teachers?
Let me kind of give you from the practitioner standpoint as an
Okay.
experience as a principal in the 21st Century Grant. It is a lot of money to help run some after-school programs, and that money can also be utilized to fund teacher tutoring. And so when you're asking to utilize the tutoring, the grant itself, or using teachers, it is our teachers that would be set up to primarily do the tutoring for our kids, and then also will be allowed and possibly to do enrichment. And so when you're doing this, you're actually, for your most at-risk kids, you're extending their school day and learning so that you continue affirming the different learning targets that they're doing within the school. So it is a true partnership, and it's been quite successful throughout the state. And from my experience as a principal, I benefited it greatly with a 6 through 8 program, because I was able to run a school from 8 o'clock in the morning all the way till 6:30 at night, and serving some of the most challenging neighborhoods in the area. And there was a lot of success as a result of that.
Well, and I guess you made a point that I was trying to get a point.
Yeah.
You're talking 6th grade through the 8th grade. The students that are literally at home walking the streets, there's nobody there to take care of them. If anything, I would like to see more of that focus on that group, and I don't see that focus here in this MOU. It doesn't, it's focusing more on the elementary and one middle school.
It is focusing currently right now on 2. We have one again at Jackson, that has to do with the data set that they were eligible because of the at-risk percentage. And then Navarro, because they also are at that at-risk percentage. So it's only 2 schools that we are currently focusing in on.
This is what the grant targeted. They didn't target 5 schools or 8 schools. They targeted these schools because they met the criteria, and they felt like that they would be able to take and better utilize the grant for that purpose.
Do you know of any programs that they've had as to how many students? Because like Jackson, that has been, a lot of people have tried even in that area to get students involved over the years. What is, I guess, their track record as far as how many students could they expect to come into this program? I don't want the program to get started with 5 or 6 students, spend all the money for that year, and then the money's gone and it disappears. I'm looking some kind of a assurance that this is a program that when it gets off, it's going to be here for 3, 4, 5 years. We've made a lot of times, we've approved MOUs and they last shortly, and then they just kind of fizzle out. And I know these after-school kids need that, they need the consistency. But at the elementary school, according to this grant program, they weren't focusing on that. They were focusing on 5th graders on up.
Pink Elementary has the program as Kaminsky, and so we can look at the data from Pink Elementary, because Pink Elementary has had a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club in the area, and it has quite benefited the Pink Elementary school community and the kids.
And the school, and the board approved it as an MOU?
I would have to go back to those, I would assume that has been in place for a long time. This is, again, not just Boys and Girls Club offering a program. This is for permission to apply for a grant for a potential program.
Why do they need our permission?
That's part of the grant from the state of Texas are asking for that.
Well, and not only that, the partnership is with Jackson Elementary and Navarro. And they can't go and do a grant and without our permission, because they can't offer it, they can't use the school facility. And that's the reason why they're asking for that's why they're here now, asking for permission from the board to even pursue this grant.
So it sounds like they've had success at Pink, and so that was your question, is how do we know that hopefully there's some type of assurance that'll work, but there has already been a success?
Well, I'd like to know if they've been turning in their quarterly reports. What is the study on those students the record that they were to be, how many years has this been going on over there? Has all of these criteria been followed? Have y'all had your meetings with them? Have y'all had
How are they measuring the success?
right,
And the partnership with the Boys and Girls Club right now is not a 21st century grant.
okay.
So you can't, you're comparing apples to
Okay.
oranges. They are using Boys and Girls Club funds that they have raised from the community because the community helped to build a facility, and they've been using those funds to support Pink Elementary.
Is that
What
part
they're
of the
doing now
funds
is that they're trying to expand, and they're looking for additional funding to do that, and that's why they're going after the 21st century grant.
Okay, if they have the facility, not on Pink Campus, but next door to Pink Campus.
They can walk across the street.
So they don't have the facility on the campus.
They started on the campus. And
Okay.
then when the facility was built, then they just started taking and coming, they pick the kids up and then they walk them over to the facility.
So providing the office and providing the buses, we're not doing that.
We do provide the buses.
That was like, what, about 3 years ago?
At least that long, because,
I'm on the advisory council for the Fort
yeah.
Bend Boys and Girls Clubs. That was since I've been on the board.
yeah.
Is that
And-
tied in with Friends of North Richmond?
They all kind of work together.
Yeah, because I help volunteer too.
But those are off campus, is what I'm getting at.
Some have been on,
They were on campus until they built their facility
right.
over there, but there isn't one.
But what I hope we don't lose sight of is that we're talking about assisting kids here. That's what a nonprofit asking for funds to assist kids. Now, if the board wants to have a formal report as a result of that, if the board approves this, the board certainly could not approve this, but if you approved it and you needed a formal report, I think that they would be more than happy to provide that information.
They may
But-
have to as part of their grant.
The
It's
grant says
without a
they have
doubt.
to.
So we would just need to make sure that we get a report, would that be? And what I heard you asking earlier was if other support services or after-school programs can get the same access to the kids. So is that a possibility, or does that have to do because it's part of the grant, so it's
For
specialized?
those schools.
For those schools.
Okay, so that's not possible for the other programs?
I cannot say definitive tonight that that would be true, but for profit, that would not be a possibility.
So it's gonna be-
Again, this is a program through a it's a non-private entity. And again, what we're trying to do is apply for that particular funding. And we don't really know if we're going to get that, but apply for that.
Okay, thank you.
But I can get that, try to get that information.
I think they said that there is 40 grants available. I read that somewhere. There was a limit.
Yes, there is a limit to the number of grants that will be approved by the state.
And again, I want to reiterate, I want the kids to learn, okay? Over the years, though, I have learned that if you start something just whimsically, not whimsically, you're starting something with good intentions, but as soon as the funds dry up, then what happens? And elementary schools, we have so many that are in need of that. Initially, the after-school programs, when they first started off, was to help the students after school increase their homework abilities, give them the social skills. All that was collaborating with the school district. And then as the years went on by, it deteriorated. And unfortunately, it got to be more considered as a business, and it wasn't. The ones that actually wanted the programs were trying to figure out what kind of homework do these kids have? what are their issues behaviorally wise, just as what this group is having, but have no access to that material because it literally turned into a business. And even to this day, the challenge is all these students, when they come in the afternoon, they all need help. 99% of them are in need of help. And there's a lot of those that are in that socioeconomic label. They are at risk. So if we do it for one elementary school, I guess my thing is, why would we not look at the whole after-school programs in all the elementary schools and try to get everybody unilaterally doing the same thing?
But that would-
Because eventually, someone's gonna say, if Jackson gets all of this, why isn't this school getting it? Why aren't my students at this school getting it?
But they didn't meet the requirements of the grant,
It all takes
right?
money.
And so that's kind of a separate, I see what you're saying, but that's a separate thing because they met the requirements of this grant. So we would apply for other schools had they met the requirements, correct? So it's because we're working with this
Okay,
So
particular
let's move
grant.
on.
Well, we're saying are we applying for it, or is it?
The
is
Boys
it
and
the
Girls
Boys and Girls
Club is applying for
Oh,
it, in conjunction with Lamar CISD.
So we're asking to approve this. If they get the grant, they can move forward.
That's correct.
That's all we're doing.
But my thing is, if we're
Yeah, but
doing
let's
that,
move
is to
on.
focus
I know,
on middle
but
school.
We're supposed to be asking questions
Yes.
tonight. So I think,
Excuse me, but this is the only time I'm able to talk to everybody, but
okay.
I want to know, what are we gonna be doing for the middle schools and the junior highs? According to this grant, it is talking about grades 4 through 12. So what are we doing, if anything, for the middle schools? What kind of program will be established for them?
We're continually looking to seeking, we have had some conversations with YMCA and how that they can help support us at our 6th grades. We're not at a point to take any information to the board at that point, but we're anticipating being able to engage some of our YMCA partners into some of our 6th grade campuses because they do not have athletics. And you are correct, engaged kids, when kids are supported in after school and programs like that, they do perform. And the idea is when they go into 7th and 8th grade, they have a whole lot more of different programming that they can engage in at times. And so we are actively looking at grants and we're actively looking at ways in which we can support, particularly our 6th through 8 campuses at this point. A strong foundational support for 6th through 8th grade will help support our 9th through 12th campuses as well.
So part of this grant would be focusing in, but on just one of those schools. That would be Navarro.
The grant is only Navarro and Jackson Elementary School.
To Catherine's point, how long is this on page 4 of the Boys and Girls Club memorandum? It says number 16 at the top, commit to partnering and developing long-term program sustainability plan for the ACE program. What does long-term look like, to your point that it wouldn't be 1 year and the funding runs out and then it's over?
And so history tells us with the 21st Century Grant, on average, it looks, they have cycles go through 3 to 5 years of cycling of funding available.
Okay. And that would commence, if we got it, on July 1st, 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
So from there, approximately 3 to 5 years?
Yes, ma'am.
And the board needs to keep in mind that grants are just that. At the end of the grant, then the board would have to determine whether or not they wanted to continue it through funding or drop it. That's how grants
And so by
operate.
getting the reports, that would be helpful when that comes to an end, if we wanted to continue.
I would venture to say that the Boys and Girls Club probably would be able to have funding at that point to continue it. Because this is their project, we're just a part of, and we're fortunate enough that they are supporting the work that's occurring on our campuses, these 2 campuses.
Ms. Kaminsky.
present time, we don't have, this is gonna be the first time for this funding.
Are you meaning the
That we're-
21st?
The 21st. Will this be the first grant that we have applied for or received?
For the 21st Century Grant, I'd have to check. I don't know historically if we've ever received the 21st Century Grant or in conjunction with another outside entity in Lamar CISD. I'd have to check and get back to you.
I don't think so, but my memory is not as sharp as it used to be, and it's highly possible
Yes, it
that
is.
we could have. So I think we
It's-
would go and look at that first.
It hasn't been in the last 8 years, for sure. This is the first time it's come across my,
I just have and there again, not being able to state the opinion, trying to put it into a question that, as far as how would this affect our having to use some of our teachers, which they are going to be requesting to have meetings with them.
Are they funded, if the teachers are working extra, they're paid through the
Through
grant?
the grant.
That is correct. And so it would not mandate which teachers. We'd ask for teachers who are interested. And if they do apply and get hired by the Boys and Girls Club, they would be compensated outside of Lamar CISD salary.
And they would, in turn, they would have access to information about the children as to any issues they may have during school, failing certain grades.
It would be a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and the campus to look at identified students to help them strategically.
But I'm not sure that the Boys and Girls Club would have access to all of the students'
No.
records and
No.
those types of
No.
things. That's not what we're talking about
No.
here. They may understand that a kid is failing math and needs to work on multiplication, and that's what they'll be working on.
Limited information.
And it also has, as far as how the students would be chosen to be in the program, there is a criteria they have to meet. Is that correct?
So we'd open it to the entire school and then be allowing students to participate in the after-school program. And then we would look at possibly campuses talking with parents and advertising and say, is your child interested in doing this? And open it up to support those students after school.
Okay. I'm trying to debate whether I should ask this one last question because I have had the experience in the after-school programs, and so I want to speak from that avenue in that if we're going to allow, grant or no grant, some interactions with the teachers in relationship to what the children are needing and what help they need, that it's being directed toward one school. And I would like to know if there's any way, or is there anyone that would be considering, if we do this for this one school, how do we get it available to all the other campuses? Because everybody's goal is the same, and it's affecting all the kids. Is there any possibility, if this grant is approved, that the communications, I know they're also talking about an advisory council, but it sounds like it's just theirs, that any program that's associated with the children, with the after-school program, with the intent of making sure that if they're having a deficit in math or in English, that the programs would have access to the same information as this nonprofit group.
Yeah.
We believe in partnerships with all entities that are serving our kids. And last year, before COVID, before March of spring break, I did have private meetings with all of the ELCs that were all the early learning centers that were all ones that applied to be part of our pre-K. And we began conversations about how we could work together, not about FERPA things that we can talk about. However, how could we support our goals together and work together over the summer? Obviously, COVID hit directly after that, and there's been a number of challenges this year. But I can assure you from the from my perspective, is that we believe strongly in community partnerships, and we are open to that moving forward. How that's going to look, I could not provide a picture of that right now, but I can tell you in our future, yes, we would like to have dialogue.
Do we still have some schools, I know we did it in the spring, that a lot of them have after-school tutorials that they find funding for and pay teachers and get buses and have an extra hour? Do a lot of the
Yes.
schools still do those after-school tutorial programs?
Yes, many of the campuses that we're talking about also have title funds. And so with title funds that are federal funds, they're paying for teachers. They're also paying for transportation, and all of that's funneling through the federal dollars for title.
And it's
Um,
per principal, how they.
Per
wish-
principal, and then they bring tutors in to help with our kids. They tutor after school, they tutor before school sometimes. And so if it's within their normal part of their day, they're not compensated. But if it's
Right.
additional, such as camps and support of that nature, then yes, there are ways to compensate. And so title funds are utilized for that.
So many schools are getting, they're just not getting this type of relief, but they are
Correct.
getting some sort of tutorial program.
As we sat down to begin to look at the campuses that would qualify, there were 2 campuses at this time that would qualify for the 21st Century Grant, and that was Jackson and that was Navarro. And so that is the only campuses currently right now that we're asking to be able to apply for.
Thank you.
So the main difference is the nonprofit and the for-profit and the sharing of information. And so that's something, if we wanted to talk about the for-profit, that would be another discussion to talk about possible.
Boys and Girls Club we will not share educational privacy items such as grades and particular attendance scores and such, and things about them that we cannot disclose. But working in partnership of the things that we know that our kids need in a global manner is something that we can do.
Well, it's like in that report, it says that they would have to turn in, if there's an improvement in attendance in the schools, if there's an improvement in their grades, and they particularly were saying math and English, they would still have to be turning in the state reports that TEA requires.
Okay, so going forward, we can,
Okay.
if this gets funded, we'll ask for reports.
Yeah, I just, the partnership, I think overall, I hope y'all understand that was my concern, is that we need the partnership for all the elementary schools. I would have liked to have seen this go to the middle schools. I think that's where a lot of the students are falling through the cracks. And I'll stop. But thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you.
The next item, we ask the board to ratify financial and investment reports.
The financial, I have a question on page 27. And this is more one-on-one, obvious, I understand it to a point, but I wanted to bring it up. The revenues right now are low compared to our expenditures, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I got my tax bill this past week, and total shock. My question would be, what do you anticipate as far as the collections? More of late payments or more requests for installment payments? And how would that affect your budget?
That's probably a several part response. So we contract with the county to do the tax collections. So that would be the entity that would work with the taxpayers directly on payment agreements and things like that. I say that because at this point in time, I've not heard that anyone has asked for payment agreements. And typically, we don't have a whole lot of those. So, and we're not really expecting any change in collections between prior years and this year. I think what you're asking as far as this report, this is a cash basis report. And so it definitely in the fall is gonna reflect less cash collections than expenses. Our expenses are pretty well evenly distributed. There's some things that we pay up front and some things that we pay by the month, you know. But on average, it's pretty consistent from month to month on the expenditure side. On the revenue side, you're not gonna see tax collections to a large degree until December and January. November was actually the first month, that we're posting the 2020 tax year payments. So this month, we collected a little over 2 million in tax collections, and then, of course, there's just a portion that goes to the general fund, the other portion goes to the debt service fund. So you're seeing a couple million posted this month, roughly, into revenues. And that's in the 5,700s, that top line item, the 2.189 million. And then state program revenues are received based on our payment class. And the class that we're in, we're gonna get larger payments in the fall, and that's to compensate for the lack of tax revenue in the fall. So that's why you see more money in the 5,800s, because that's where our state payments go. But yes, you are gonna see less revenue in the fall than you do in the rest of the year.
Have you received the PPP payments, reimbursements? Are you seeing those coming in?
We've received roughly 5 million in, you're talking about CARES Act applications. And that's gonna be a complicated subject because not all the funds, in fact, the bulk of the funds are not posted in the general fund. And a lot of the expenses happened in the 2019-20 year, not in the 2020-21 fiscal year. So you're gonna, it's gonna split fiscal years.
Okay.
We can, once the applicants, we're in the middle of the application phase there. Not all the monies have been awarded yet. So there's things that'll probably be allowed and disallowed, so the numbers are real fluid right now.
Yeah.
But it does look like we're gonna get a whole lot of funding.
Okay, good.
We're often critical when they don't do what they're supposed to do, but in this particular instance, the money is flowing in. So we can feel at least positive that we are being reimbursed a lot of the funds that they said that they would.
There was about 3 to 4, about 4 million or so that hit the general fund, and I think we'll get the bulk of that back.
Good. Thank you.
The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to consider approval of budget amendment request. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve all vendors who responded to the proposal for instructional materials, equipment, supplies, and related items for the district. Next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve all vendors who responded to the proposal for catering and banquet services for the district.
I was a little disappointed to not see the Chick-fil-A in Rosenberg on this list. Mr. Graves, who owns that, I don't know, his organization.
They might be the Sugarland one though, because he owns the Greatwood one also, and that's considered Sugarland.
Huh, there you go.
That might be him.
It's not really a question, that was just a comment. I like the man and I like his restaurant, so.
There are times when we have supplemental bids, and we think that we're gonna have a supplement on this one. So I expect that that'll probably be resolved. There were a number of our most popular vendors that are typically on this list that did not get their paperwork in on time. So they're all hoping that we have a second opportunity.
Fair enough.
Next item on the agenda, we ask the board to approve a resolution regarding the extension of emergency paid sick leave and expanded FMLA.
That has a correction.
That's correct. It says July 31st, 2020, and that needs to be July 31st, 2021. And this is again, this leave stops on the 31st, and what this does is just take and extend it through the rest of the year. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve a second reading of EIC Local Academic Achievement Class Ranking.
I have a question on this. I'm hoping that somebody can put in some clear language, explain what this is gonna do, different than what's already in place, because I know that.
Yeah, so basically it was cleaning up a lot of language. Most of it was old language that talked about cohorts of students that have already graduated and moved on. So a lot of this is cleaning up of that language, as well as clarifying, one of the big changes is in there it was a mistake saying that we were on a weighted 5.0 scale, when in reality it was a weighted 4.0 scale. And so that is just cleaning up some language of the policy.
And this will not impact the graduating class in May of 2021.
It starts for next school year, implemented then.
Thank you.
The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve the membership of the Attendance Boundary Committee for 2021 as presented with the proposed timelines using Lamar CISD zoning process, and charge the ABC with setting the boundaries for Morgan Elementary for the 21-22 school year. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve the attached resolution proclaiming January 9, 2021 as Law Enforcement Appreciation Day in Lamar Consolidated Independent School District. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve the deductive change order in the amount of $154,858 and final payment of $515,047.85 to Dermala Construction for the construction of Tamaron Elementary School, and authorize the board president to sign the change order.
That is a savings to the district of $154,858, correct? You don't have to walk all the way, but I just. Thank you, Kevin.
All the way.
Huh?
All the way, those 3 feet.
The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees to approve the deductive change order in the amount of $30,055 and final payment of $81,954.77 to Bass Construction for the miscellaneous campus renovations and controls upgrades, and authorize the board president to sign the change order.
And another savings of $30,055.
The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve Rocket IT Consulting for installation of the building technology systems for the multipurpose and orchestra additions and renovations in the amount of $137,996, and authorize the board president to sign the agreement. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve Rocket IT Consulting for installation of the fiber data connections for the Jane Long Historic Gym renovations in the amount of $5,625, and authorize the board president to sign the agreement. The next item, We ask that the Board of Trustees approve the CenterPoint Energy Terms and Conditions Package for the installation of underground electric service at Fletcher Morgan Jr. Elementary School, and authorize the Board President to execute the agreement documents. And there was a misspelled word pointed out in the document that has been corrected, and that was Morgan.
I had a question, I don't know if it was on this item or on the ABC timeline, but in one of the descriptions, it discussed the date of completion. That's been moved back for Morgan Elementary.
Oh, it's page 92. I had that same question.
Oh, I guess I
It's
jumped
the next
ahead.
item.
Oh, okay.
But actually, you kind of was in the ballpark with any one of those items, because the rezoning, we would still rezone regardless of the fact that the occupancy now will change because of it being pushed back. There is an agenda item that will address that in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve change order number 1 in the amount of $1,620,000 to Bass Construction for the construction of the additional classrooms approved in the 2020 bond referendum, approve the transfer of 2017 and 2020 bond funds, and authorize the Board President to sign the change order. Mr. McKeever can answer any questions if you have any regarding that. This is basically just while they're there during the construction, they will now just continue to build out rather than wait and then come back later in the 2020 bond when that bond sale is done.
That's
And it'll be
correct.
reimbursed to the 2017 fund.
That is correct. So we will save a little bit of money by doing that as well.
Almost 200,000.
Yes, ma'am.
And the architectural plans and all that's already in place?
That was actually an alternate that we bid at the original, so yes, they've already put that together.
Great.
Okay, thank you. The next item is that the Board of Trustees approve change order number 1 in the amount, don't go too far, Kevin.
Yeah.
In the amount of $46,562 to Dramala Construction Company for the cost to escalate, and authorize the Board President to sign the agreement. Mr. Hunt, this is.
So this is the one.
This is it.
So I just wanted to see the date of the completion of Morgan Elementary is now officially getting moved back. I wanted to see if you could, because I'm sure me and others on the board are going to receive some questions about why that happened. Could you give a little bit of detail on that?
Sure. This actually stems all the way back to Hurricane Harvey, and as the county went into a new study, and they have changed all of their floodplains, they've actually raised them up. And so when all of those requirements actually hit, it was after we had purchased and gotten into an agreement with Dramala and an agreement with the subdivision. So working with the county, they helped us to get to the right elevations. And when we finally got those numbers and got to the right elevation, we had to raise and redesign our site. And so we had to raise it about 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet. And the subdivision is still in that mode right now. Of course, they have a lot larger area to deal with than we do. And so the county really helped us out on that, and that's what has happened. So now we're at, currently, since we are moving and we've gotten that okay to start moving from the county, we're at a December 20th substantial completion date. And what this change order is requesting is to move it to a November 15th substantial completion date. So we have November 15th to the end of December to get the building ready to move into at the first of the year.
So the reason for the delay was that there were some new guidelines about floodplains. So we needed to get those numbers from the county, and then we needed to actually implement it and raise the plane.
Raise the finished floor level, yes, sir.
Okay. And so was there a delay in getting those numbers from the county, or was there a delay in raising the floor level? Because up until a few weeks ago, we thought that we still might be able to, it would be tight, but we still might be able to get in. So what was the reason for the change, and where particularly was the delay?
Well, the delay was getting the numbers, and then we had to redesign. It took about 4.5 to 5 weeks to redesign the entire site because all of the whole civil had to be redone again. And so we had to start all over again once we found that number.
Were those new guidelines that were recent? Like, I mean, when did they come out? Was it something that we didn't plan for, or?
Well, we knew there was gonna be some issues because we knew, talking with the county, but they didn't come out till we were far into this project. And so that's when we finally finalized on that by working with the county engineer's office and the drainage department, the county drainage. When we got that is when they said, okay, we'll let you go ahead and start because you're there. The subdivision is not there yet.
So we had plans, we were implementing those plans, and then the new guidelines came out, and we had to call an audible, and then we had to wait for the county to give us the new numbers. We had to completely redo the plans, implement the plans, and that's why we had to push back.
Yes, sir. That's correct. And we had to bring a lot of dirt in to raise that site up.
Okay. So what's the plan for the 2021-22 school year? If we're doing the ABC now, we're doing new boundaries, where are those Morgan students going to be from August until December of 2021?
We would implement the same process that we did for opening Lindsay. We would continue,
Bentley. Yes, sir.
Bentley, thank you.
Bentley.
Lord have mercy.
That was-
You notice how they all just chime in?
Now, we remember Bentley.
We will hire the principal, we will hire the staff, the kids will have their teachers selected, and they will be located in a different portion of Huggins Elementary. Typically, we use the portable buildings for that purpose. And then when the move occurs, the kids, teachers, and everyone will move. The kids will not have different teachers, they'll have the same teachers. That whole process will be put in place. It's like a school within a school.
So the entire structure of the school, principal, assistant principal, teachers, they're all going to be.
All is done
And
prior to
it's
the beginning of the
flawless.
school year.
When we get it going, and when they move, it's very simple.
And
I
we
mean,
try-
not simple, but everybody works over Christmas.
And we tried to do that over a big holiday, so that the kids the parents get the chance to come and see the facility even before the kids get there. So it's, like I said, unfortunately, we had to do that with Bentley, and we don't like doing this. I can tell you that right now. But we've done it before, and it was rather smooth.
And our goal at this time is because that move was very tight from the time substantial completion was done to the actual start of school was very minimal. So that's why we're asking the board to approve the funds for an acceleration to give us ample time to get moved in and settled, so we bring those kids in and it's seamless in that way as well.
Any other questions?
No?
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions on the information items?
Dr. Randall, there are no public comments.
Thank you. I just cannot remember. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
I had a question on the first information item about summer school. It was particularly about the extended school year, and I see that we have 2 sessions, and I wanted to see if typically special education students, would they go to both of those sessions, or would they go to one or the other?
Traditionally, I believe they go to both. They go to both sessions.
Okay, all right, that was it, thank you.
All right.
But I have
Oh, you do have a
yes,
question?
yeah,
Okay.
I have some. Are we expecting a higher number of summer school students? I know it's only December 2020 as I'm speaking right now. Are we expecting a higher number next summer, 2021, because of virtual learning and the challenges with virtual learning?
Well, we're trying for that not to happen, because
Right.
intervention is the key. And so we're continuing to monitor the data that we're currently getting and providing supports, strategic supports to our kids so that we don't have that issue.
Right. Which is fine and well. The reports I hear, reading the news, typical, is that virtual students are not learning as well, and there's a lot of gaps in their academic progress. So I'm wondering, and this is really a question you can't answer, I don't think, if we're having problems with virtual learning, and I'm not saying we are, but if we are, and we were to have summer school next summer as virtual summer school, it seems like there's no reason for it, almost. Other than to perpetuate the idea that they're in summer school, I don't know.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we aren't experiencing the same level of concerns that perhaps you heard on the television. And a big part of that is because our teachers have been reaching out to, as well as instructional staff members, out to and even visiting those homes. And we've had some kids that have even come from virtual back into in-person. So there, we have our issues and we have some challenges with virtual, but the staff has really been working hard to try to address them now rather than waiting until the end of the school year and then those kids end up having to go to summer school.
And some of the summer school, am I correct, that students that want to get ahead or take classes so that they can either graduate early, so it's not just because they are behind?
Original credit or credit recovery.
Yeah.
Both of those would be offered, as we have every year, dual credit opportunities, as well as for original credit, and then just different classes that we have for original credit, and then credit recovery. Let me just say that, we anticipate doing on-campus summer school. Obviously, we will continue to be open if we get down the line and we start seeing that we're going to have to pivot. But we have strong procedures currently right now in our schools that have been quite successful, we believe, and we believe that that can be translated into a quality summer school program as well.
So are we, you're saying, you guys are confident that our virtual learners are learning properly and at the same pace they would be as if they're in the classroom overall?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Phrase it again for me, if you would.
What I would say is that those kids who have been struggling as a result of virtual learning,
Okay.
that the outreach on the part of our teachers have really been not only communicating to the families, but to the kids as well. And there have been in some instances where we've had home visits and that type of support. So I wouldn't say that it's perfect, nowhere close to that. We have our challenges with virtual learning as well. But I can truthfully say not as much as perhaps some other school districts that you heard about. And those that are having the challenges, I know that we are providing the type of outreach that maybe some other places are.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that information items?
We got payment bonds, school resource divisions, LEAF.
I had a question on page 116. I don't know what that falls under. I just noticed a couple of the ref. Is that just in the committed and balance columns? Page 116. Huh? That's just a technical difficulty.
I'm gonna
What am I-
venture to say that that's what that was.
Okay.
Yeah, when we change this over from the publisher into the Word document, it tends to move some stuff around.
So we're okay, there's no alarm? Okay, yeah.
No, ma'am, we'll
With
get
the
that.
exclamation point and all that good stuff, It caught my attention. Okay, thank you.
The stewardship report we will do on Thursday. And the cabinet will give a formal report.
I had a quick question on page 129 on the parent involvement update. I wanted to know if the committees that include parents, like the Health Advisory Committee and the Special Education Advisory Committee, are those committees still meeting virtually? And then second part of that question is, has that process been of getting on that committee been publicized to parents and community members, and have they been, new parents and community members cycled in?
So for the first part, yes, they're still continuing virtually. And from my understanding with the one I'm more familiar with the SHAC and the GT, Parent Advisory Committee, there are advertisements going out. They send it through the district and also through social media, and also attempting to utilize campus communications as well. For example, GT PAC, the Parent Advisory Committee for Gifted and Talented, uses the GT facilitators to send notes home for elementary, but then also communications on the campus level to solicit parent involvement.
Do you know if the Special Education Committee's been?
I would have to check on that one. I'd have to ask Ms. Mathis on that one for special ed.
Okay.
You were asking if they're still meeting, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and if there's been notice that's gone out.
I know
if you
that-
don't have
I
the
know
answer
they're
now,
meeting,
it's
but-
okay. If you could maybe just.
Let me clarify. Yes,
Yeah.
they are currently meeting, and yes, they are announcing through that. And they've actually had a lot of participants from the virtual means. And so the special ed department has been very excited actually about that. Now the question on how are they seeking candidates and additional candidates is something I'm going to have to get back to you on.
From time to time, I have parents that will come to me and they're interested in those committees, and they ask, when could I apply to be on this committee? When do new people get on the committee? And I just don't know the answer to
Okay.
that. So
We'll get it for you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, if you go on to lcisd.org under the community tab, all of our advisory committees, there's a link where parents can sign up, and that's any time during the year, and our department heads would have access to those lists. Certainly, if anyone's interested in any of the committees, whether it's special ed, SHAC, or ABC, et cetera, you can reach out to individuals in those departments any time of the year and ask about them. But at any time, you can sign up, put your name down, say you're interested. That way, when those come around for applications or time to recruit new membership, the departments can pull that list and see who's applied for consideration.
I guess the remaining question I would have is whether this year they've, cycled in new candidates onto those committees.
Right, many of those committees run by departments, so like Dr. Maxwell and Dr. Mossage mentioned, a lot of those directors reach out in different ways, whether it's Canvas or email or things. But I would just reinforce that at any time, anyone can sign up on the website for any committee so that we know that they're interested.
And some of them are not every year with new members, right? Is it, you're on there for 2-3 years, something? There's some different.
Right, like the
cycles?
DSIC, that's a
Okay.
membership that's typically multiple years, and then there's an opportunity for other folks to join from either parents or the community. That's correct.
So it depends on which one, I guess.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then does it say the cycles, it's on the website, if you click on the certain?
I have to double check all the details, but every single one has a description about what the committee does, as well as some contact information.
Okay. Thank you.
Those are all of the information items, Madam President.
Okay, we are not gonna have closed session this evening, so it is 7:38, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned, 7:38 PM.